All right, PDX Radio, man. It's your boy, Big Rap, man. I am joined here by a special guest, man. Why don't you let the world know who you are?
All right. Hello. Thanks for having me. My name is Jimmy. I host a podcast called Jimmy's Jambox.
Jimmy's Jambox, man. Hey, thank you for joining us today, man, Jimmy. So tell me, what made you start Jimmy's Jambox?
Oh, man. There's a long version, but I'll give you the short version. Basically, I've done music for a long time. Always been really in it. I've been playing bass for like almost 20 years, done everything else in some capacity. But like 2.5 years ago, I was trying to get a music project off the ground and it wasn't hitting. So I needed something to do. And through a series of conversations, somebody inspired me to start a podcast, which I've been told many times. I just never had an idea. One day I finally had an idea on what I could do. So I just figured it out, went home, and I started the very first episode.
So let me ask you, are you originally from the Northwest? Were you born and raised out here?
No, so technically no. I'm born and raised in California. Okay. But my mom's lived right outside of Washougal since I was like 9.
Yeah.
So, I've spent every other holiday and all like half of summers and a fair amount of time up here. So like I've experienced everything Pacific Northwest. I've been actually snowed in. I've like ran around in the woods for hours at a time. So even though I'm not born and raised here, I grew up here.
That's good. Yeah. That's good. That's good. Now, you see, I got my little trusty little sheet here with some questions for you. So let me ask you, how did you get your start into the music industry?
So, like I said, I started playing bass about 20 years ago. I kind of grew up with music around. My dad played guitar. We had a piano in the house. And I tried to pick up some other instruments first. My dad told me I had to play piano for a year before I could do guitar. And that didn't work out. I'm not a sit still guy. And so a few years later, he let me play bass. I was in a band 2 weeks before I got it. And I just hadn't looked back since. I got into engineering like 12 years ago. I worked at Guitar Center for 10 years. At one point, I owned pretty much all the instruments and a few versions of them. And so I guess I kind of fell into music just by being around me. And then eventually that's how I started socializing, and I never looked back.
So what was your first impression of the guitar? Was it like just instant love when you feel like you first saw one or first picked one up? So
the guitar, like there was always a guitar in my house. So it was something where like I would pick it up, I would make sounds with it. My dad didn't really take a lot of time into like showing me stuff on it. So like it was a strange instrument to me, and it was like his, so I don't want to mess with it because he always had something nice around the house. So like I said, the piano was really the first instrument where I got to like learn how to play it. And I wish I had stuck with it more then, because now I would be appreciating it more. Because years later I had a handful of synths and I was like, man, I wish I could actually do stuff on them. But yeah, I think, once I picked up the bass was when I like finally understood what making music was.
Man, shout out to the bass players.
Oh yeah.
For real. Shout out to the bass players. I mean, every great song has a great bass line.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And the bass players are behind that. So now you've performed in various places, right?
Oh yeah.
What do you think is your most memorable performance to you?
Okay. So a while back, one of like my early bands, like with the first like serious band I was in, it was called Alert the Armory. And everybody in that band kind of had some kind of connection in the musical world one way or the other. And so we got to play a show with this band that was big at the time called My American Heart, that my guitar player's sister like figured out how to get in touch with them and organized it. So we got to play at this place called the Great American Music Hall, which is in the Bay Area. It's a really nice venue. And like it was packed. It was slammed.
Oh, that's sweet.
So yeah, so like this is not a show that we like normally would have got if we were just reaching out to whoever.
Right.
But it was like there was like easily a few hundred people there, and like we didn't go first, you know what I mean? Like she made it so we were right before the headlining experience. So that was a really cool one. And then I think the other one, we got to play at Slim's in San Francisco.
Ooh,
which is
I've heard
like,
of Slim's.
Yeah,
I've heard of Slim's.
There are a handful of them to the best of my knowledge, but that one was like the one where like I saw a lot of big people play. I knew that was like where talent went. And it's like not the biggest venue. It's a little more on the intimate side, but it was like where people went to rock. And so we got to play with some really big bands there as well. And that was a really memorable moment.
So let me ask you, what challenges have you faced running your music platform, or running the platform that you do?
So, that's a tough one because it's really, I mean, I'm sure you understand very much that like, it's such a like people oriented thing. Cause I'm always, I didn't start with guests originally, but now every episode has a guest or it's a live performance and a 5 days a week episode put out is not a short order. But I think it's not so much hurdles. It's more just that like making sure that I'm not overextending myself.
Yeah.
Because, there's so many, like I have all these ideas all the time. I have all these concepts I want to put into place. I have all these like things that I'm like, oh, if I do this, I could be doing that. Sometimes I need to like remind myself to just let it kind of happen as it's happening right now.
Yeah.
And just wait till I'm so comfortable that I'm starting to get bored before I start adding more stuff in.
Now, I've seen your setup and I've viewed your YouTube page quite a bit. You've got a lot of interviews under your belt.
Oh yeah.
How many do you have right now?
Over 300. It's hard to keep track of the exact number.
Sheesh. Yeah. That's crazy. And how many do you think on average do you do a week?
I do about 4 to 9 a week.
4 to 9 a week?
Yeah, like it varies a little bit. Like this weekend, I'm going to be doing 5 of them up in Seattle when I go up there.
That's tight.
Yeah. But yeah, usually average, I do Monday through Thursday, Saturdays if I'm not doing the showcase or a trip to Seattle, and then Sundays.
Yeah, so that's cool to know that you're doing your show in 2 different places. You're doing it out here in Vancouver, and you're also doing it in Seattle. That's tight.
Yeah, shout out to Undercast. They the guys who run it there, Isaac and Randy, they reached out to me because I had interviewed somebody that like they had worked with. They're like a well-established studio, and after like I think it was like a 3-hour phone call, they were just like, is there anything we could do to help you? And I was like, well, I've been trying to get back to Seattle.
Yeah.
Because I had done it the year before, but it was a lot of organizing, like finding different places to do it, different people get it. And so they were like, well, if you want to come here, you can use our space. Like we'd love to support you. So I've been going up there once a month since then.
So let me ask you, what's the process like for you to choose an artist to interview or to even be on Jimmy's Jambox?
The bar is not that high. Really, I try to find people that have either interacted with other people I've already interviewed, or I try to find people who just like they just get off a good feeling. You know what I mean? So I'm not too picky about like, do you have 1 million followers? Do you have 1 million songs? Have you been doing it 1 million years? Like, I think that there's so much music happening in so many capacities. And some of the interviews I end up really enjoying are like interviews I've made friends out of are ones that like I was not sure about even going into, you know what I mean? It's hard to judge because I do most of my outreach through like Instagram or like just like through other people's connections. So I'm not outside a lot, unfortunately, because I do this so much. So it's hard for me to like know a person before they come into the space.
Yeah. So what advice do you have for independent artists trying to get noticed?
That's a tough one because right now, the narrative that social media is the way to do everything is so strong that it's hard to convince people otherwise. Yeah. But I'm still a firm believer that like, boots on the ground is the way to do it. So you get out there, you shake hands, you kiss babies, you show up early, you stay late, you offer to help wherever you can. Like if you are making yourself known in person at the places where people in person are at, that's a whole different world. And that's the part of the music that's happening in real life. That's the part of the music that happens in real time. And the people who are at those spaces are the ones out there doing it.
That just reminds me of a saying that my friend used to tell me all the time. My friend Eddie. Shout out to Eddie, man. Shout out to you, boy. My boy Eddie Fox. He used to tell me all the time when I was young, man, if you stay ready, you never have to get ready. And I learned that a long time ago from when I was young. I went to a studio and I wasted probably like 45 minutes in the studio session. And because I wasn't prepared, I wasted their money. I wasted their time. I wasted the engineer's time. So it's like, for everything that I do now, I always try to be there at least on time. If I'm on time, I'm late. I'm running behind. You know what I mean?
So I'm if you're 5 minutes early.
Yeah. If I'm early, then I'm on time. I'm good. You know. So yeah. Hey, I like your work ethic.
Oh,
so
thanks, man.
Let me ask you. What trends do you see in the independent music scene right now?
See, that's again a little bit tough because I'm so inside looking out kind of thing. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't exactly like notice a lot of those kinds of things. Like for me, really, it's so specific and so conversational.
Yeah,
that like I would say it's just kind of down to like how certain people approach things and the like recurring elements within that. So like, you know, like a lot of rap and hip hop artists now, they take the mumble approach to like figure out their stuff first. Very like, you know, Beatles with the bacon and eggs of it all.
Yeah.
So that seems to be a recurring thing. A lot of people, or actually I feel like there's a good 50-50 split between people who still write their stuff in pencil or pen, like not going to the phone for it because they don't feel that connection. So that's been an interesting one. But yeah, I mean, I'm really just, I feel bad. I'm not like super attached to that part of the world of music at the moment because I just dive into so much conversation with people.
Now I'm going to double down on a question that you asked me on your interview.
Oh, okay.
Except we're going to spin it a little bit.
Yeah, please.
If you could interview anybody that you haven't interviewed that you would want to interview, who would you want to interview and why?
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm going to answer that the way I asked both the questions. So I'm going to do local and all time.
Okay.
Locally, I know he's technically not a born and raised local cat, but Aesop Rock is here.
Oh yeah.
And I would love to have a conversation with that man.
I didn't even know he was here.
Yeah. Yeah. He lives in the Portland area. He stays pretty to himself.
That's what's up.
But that like, I know he's in the area. I would love to have a conversation. I think that would be really interesting. As far as like all-time person though, Childish Gambino.
Well, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Tyler the Creator as well, but he is out there. He puts his words everywhere. So it's not like anything I get would really be groundbreaking.
Yeah.
But Childish Gambino, I think really just the way he approaches everything is just so interesting. I would love to have a conversation with him.
And what artists or genres do you personally enjoy the most?
Oh man, that's tough too because like I really I hate it when people are like I listen to everything because obviously you can't listen to everything. There are genres that people don't even know yet.
Exactly.
But like really, I try to think about what I haven't heard in a little while and listen to that for a bit. So anytime like my algorithm shows up as one thing too heavily, I try to like move to a completely different thing for long enough that it adjusts it. But I mean, like, you know, I mainstay in like, you know, obviously like rap and hip hop is a big one for me. A lot of like indie stuff I really try to lean towards.
Okay.
When I'm feeling in the mood, I'll lean more towards like in the realm of electronic, I do more of the like dubstep focused stuff that's a little more high energy, a little more like almost overproduced in like the percussion realm. And then I try to like just jump around in like heavier genres as well. So a lot of metal, a lot of the different types of cores, and just anything I can really get my hands on to just kind of keep the general frame. Or, you know, I'm not sitting there listening to like flamenco. Like, you know, like I don't mind a little, you know, Spanish classical, but like there are so many genres in the day. I'm not going to tell you I like am stuck here virtuosoing all the time.
So let me ask you, all right, top three artists in your play deck right now that you're listening to in your car that you can listen to any time of the day.
So, let's see. Gorillaz Demon Day album.
Okay.
Any day. Every single day.
Let's go.
Enter Shikari's first album.
Okay.
I know the whole, like, cover to cover. I could tell you everything on there. And then it's either Frank or Frank, Frank and C. But Frank Moody. Who he's like a like synth pop-esque artist. He does kind of more funky stuff. And that's just that was what I was listening to on the way here. Yeah. But like everything that he has ever put out ever, I've always really enjoyed.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now tell the people where they can find you.
So I'm on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com/@Jimmy'sJambox.
Yeah.
I'm also on Instagram @Jimmy'sJambox. That's really about the gist of it. I don't do too much outside of that.
And I'll display all of that right here.
Perfect. Thank you.
It'll all show right here.
Yeah.
So you guys make sure you guys go follow Jimmy, man. Check out his interviews. He's got some of the best interviews I've seen out there. I like his questioning. Your studio setup is super dope. I aspire to get mine in a way that how you have yours. I like what you're doing, man.
Oh, thank you, man.
And what you're doing for the community is you're giving people a voice and you're giving them an opportunity to tell their story, because there's not a lot of people out there like you and me who are allowing people to, express themselves and talk about where they come from. So again, man, I thank you and I appreciate you. It's your boy Big Rap, man. Special presentation. Let's go.
Sir.